Thank you all for joining us today for our final in our series of Network at Work events for this spring, Pivot, Transferable Skills and Career Transitions. Our spring series has focused on the Great Resignation as a great reimagining, and Gail Fritzinger is here today to walk us through kind of how we can identify our transferable skills for a career pivot. I'm Christy Capone Kennedy. I am the Director of Alumni Professional Networks and Career Programs here at Smith, and I am also an alum of the class of 2010. I'm joined today by my colleagues Susan Bowen and Amy Moscartolo, Ada Comstock, class of 05. They're here helping make sure that everything runs smoothly for us today on the tech side. And leading us through today's session is Gail Fritzinger, class of 81, Career Transition Specialist. Like I mentioned at the top, we have a lot of great content to get through today, so I'm just actually going to turn it over to Gail, let her introduce herself and get us started. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Well, thanks, Christy. Great to be here, and good morning, actually, from Denver, Colorado. It's only 11 o'clock here. So, and we just had a hailstorm, believe it or not. As Christy said, we've got a lot to cover today, so I want to apologize in advance for moving really quickly through a lot of this material, but we can certainly, refresh and go over some of it another time. So today we've got a lot to do, so I wanted to start with just sort of kind of a tell me about yourself. We're going to talk about transferable skills and career transition, but hold on one second. Why is my thing not working here? My slide is not working.
You should click on the screen, like use your cursor to click the screen, and that should allow for you to advance. Sometimes if you click out, try that.
All right, hang on. There we go.
There you go.
So I told Christy that I wanted to introduce myself, mostly because the first and most important interview question is always this: tell me about yourself. It's a really great way to talk about transferable skills. It's also a great way to just kind of set the stage for your journey and career transition. So I thought what I would do is I would give you my tell me about yourself. So I'm a career transition coach with over 20 years of experience in outplacement counseling and career development. My specific expertise is in skills and interest assessment, resume development, effective networking, jobs research and marketing, and interview training and practice. I combine my communication and relationship building skills with my ability to listen carefully and critically to help my clients navigate transitions with clarity and confidence. So in that very brief tell me about yourself, I probably listed about 8 different transferable skills. So hopefully you heard some of those, and we'll talk about some of those later. So you think I'm not all business, I actually put some of these kind of fun facts about myself. I got this from Amani, actually. She did the same thing. So just a few things about me and kind of what I'm doing now. Here's our agenda for today. We're going to go through a lot of material, as I said. The first thing we're going to do is kind of a question of what do I want and how do I get there? I'm hearing that from a lot of people. So we're going to consider things like skills, talents, interests, likes and dislikes, a little bit about accomplishments, unique value proposition, and different things that your criteria for job satisfaction. So we're going to talk about some of those things. Pivot is actually an exercise that I'm going to lead you through that you can do on your own time. And really what that's all about is identifying the what do you want to do, the why do you want to do it, and the where do you want to do it for your next job. We'll talk about transferable skills, what they are, how do you identify your own transferable skills, and review a little bit of the pre-work that I sent out, the skill sheet and the exercise. And then lastly, I'm going to give you some really concrete steps on how to get started in this process. Because again, what I'm finding is people sort of know how to identify a little bit about what they want to do, but they don't know how to take it to the next step. And then we're going to do a poll about needs, and then we'll move into breakout rooms and then debriefing questions. So starting with what do I want and how do I get there? Here are some questions to kind of ask yourself. Take a look at this. I often find that when people say they're interested in a new career, they kind of launch themselves right into specific jobs and they start looking at, Indeed or LinkedIn, and they don't really take the time to think about, what am I good at? What do I like to do? What have I liked about my most recent job and my former jobs? They don't think about how they did their job, or did they even like doing it? So often looking at past employment and thinking about specific supporting examples really help you build kind of a broad-based and clear portrait of who you are, and a better understanding really of the value that you can bring to a new organization. So here are some questions to ask yourself. And then when answering these questions, looking at some of these things that I just mentioned: talents and skills and interests, likes and dislikes, again, accomplishments, things that you've done, specific examples of accomplishments, and then professional and personal values. And hopefully a lot of you did see Emily Frank's presentation on Values You. And if you didn't, please get a chance to do that. It was really a great introduction to that aspect of career transition. Today, though, because of time, we're really going to focus on the first two bullets: talents, interest, skills, and likes and dislikes. This is the pivot exercise I'm talking about. It's really about these three elements for your ideal career: the what, the why, and the where. So here are three things to look at, and I want you to think about these and really be intentional when you're doing this exercise on your own. So function relates to, what are your job functions? That's the what of what you do. You know, what kinds of things are you responsible for? What do you do every day in your job? What are the tasks and activities that you really liked and the ones that you didn't like? Meaning is really about the why. It could be interests, it could be passion. It's kind of the why do you do what you do. And then the environment is really about, it could be everything from the culture, the workspace you're in, the location. What would be kind of your perfect world from an environment standpoint? Where would you like to be working? We're going to start with a function. And this is kind of an activity inventory that you can do on your own. This is kind of a deeper dive into understanding specific skills, strengths, talents required to do the job that you're doing most recently and the jobs that you did previously. If you did some of the pre-work exercise I sent out on transferable skills, you've already kind of gotten a head start on this, because that required you to write down job functions and then skills that you use. If you didn't get a chance to do that, don't worry. This is an exercise you can do where you write down 5 to 10 activities for each job, make a list, and then give serious thought to what made you effective at that task. You know, what kinds of skills did you use? What did you accomplish? That kind of thing. So that's a great way to think about it. Then, just to kind of do a little rating system on these activity inventory, think about how you would rate all of those activities. I would guess for most of us in our jobs, there are things that we absolutely love doing every day. You know, energizing, love it, great, all of that. And then there are a lot of things that we rate number 4. You know, absolutely don't make me do this. The last thing we do at the end of the day, the thing that we always put off, the thing that we hope maybe to never do again. So taking the time to rate some of these things and really think about what makes you happy, what energizes you, what gives you a feeling of accomplishment is worth doing. So that's the second part of that activity, is the rating. Then moving on to kind of the why. Often we don't really do this. I mean, I think maybe as we move through our career and we get older and we become maybe a little bit more introspective, we start to think about, what is our purpose? You know, what gives meaning to our lives? What in our job is meaningful, and what does that look like for us? It could be, you know, something that is now currently a hobby for you or a cause, and you're thinking, how can I turn that into a job opportunity? It could be something that, you know, a personal mission you have, but it does make some sense to really think about, what is my need, you know, what is my purpose, what means something to me, how do I want to make an impact in my next career? Well, how am I making an impact now, and how do I continue to do that? And lastly, the environment. This has been something that's become obviously much more important to people as we've gone through the pandemic and we've thought about working from home, and we've had that experience. Many of you probably have had that experience. So really what this is about is thinking about where am I most happy? Where do I want to do my work? For some people, it's, this is essential to their job satisfaction, is having the right geography, the right culture, company culture, the colleagues that they want to be with. They want a workspace that makes sense for them. And that workspace may be back in the office. A lot of people are going back because they like that. And for some people, it's the quiet of their home office. So think about that. Where do you want to go next? Where would be an interesting place to be? Do you want to stay in your current industry or change? Do you want to stay in your current sort of job function, or would that be something that you'd like to change? Size matter. Are you currently working for a large corporation and you can't think of anything better than the idea of being an entrepreneur, excuse me, an entrepreneur and working on your own or starting a company? Again, do you want to work in an office? Do you want to work outside an office? All of these questions help you start to get a perspective on what's going to make you happy and where you can really find the greatest job satisfaction. So here's one last exercise, really, really simple to do, but I highly recommend this. I used to have all my clients do this with a piece of paper. I'd have them write a line on it, and everything above the line would be things they liked about jobs, and everything below the line would be things that they didn't like. And this is a version of this. Take time to do a little bit of a work history debrief. Think about for each job that you've had, and maybe you're recently out of Smith and you're in your first job, but it's still worth doing. Or maybe you have had a career with 4 or 5 different opportunities and you want to take a look at those. But think again, keeping in mind this idea of function, meaning, and environment, kind of the what, the why, and the where. Think about, what did I like about each of my jobs and what did I not like? I think what you will find in doing this, that you're going to start to see a lot of consistencies. You're going to see a lot of things that you liked with each job, and that's why you moved to that job. That's why you're still doing that function. You might also see things that you really don't like. So again, what energizes you in the job, and what are the things that you constantly put off day to day and don't want to do? Think about very specifically tasks you like to do, assignments that you liked working on, projects you liked working on, that kind of thing. For example, things like, do you like working on a team, or do you like working by yourself? You hate being micromanaged by someone? Are you somebody who's very independent and likes to create their own structure? Do you like to make presentations, or would you rather not ever have to do that? And then very personally, you want to be in a situation where you can wear your pajamas to work, or wear jeans, or would you rather work, in a more corporate environment? So take a look at this. Another great thing to work on. It just helps pull a lot of ideas together and give you a better sense, excuse me, of kind of who you are, what you've done, what you're good at, and what you think you might want to do next. We're going to move now into transferable skills. I did send out some pre-work. I included a transferable skill worksheet, again, kind of like the timeline, where you kind of write down a function and then you write down your transferable skills or your tasks. I also sent along a sheet. I did not include that in this PowerPoint, but it was sort of a sheet on how to identify your transferable skills. Hopefully everybody got these. But just a really good way of taking a look at kind of what they are and how do I assess whether I have that skill or not. And then I sent along sort of a pivot example, actually a colleague of mine, and I'm going to share that on this. I have that as part of the PowerPoint. So the first thing is really about transferable skills and what are they? It's interesting. We hear that term all the time about what transferable skills are. We hear, do you have them? How do you use them? All of that. And really, very simply, transferable skills are just portable skills that can be transferred from one job to another. It's really that simple. It's also defined as the skills that you might use in every single job, no matter what the title you have or what the field you're in. Some transferable skills are what we call hard skills, like coding, specific technical skills, data analysis, and a lot of them are what we call softer skills, like the ones on the screen here. Again, if you look at this, you're going to see things that look just like probably things that you have, that you've used in every single job. To me, transferable skills can also build over time. You develop them and you can use them from job to job, and you can develop new transferable skills as well. But they are something that in a job interview, people often ask you to talk about, specifically if you are applying for a job that maybe you're not quite qualified for, but you feel like you've got the skills to do that job, that you can learn to do that job. So we'll talk about that in a minute. This is kind of an example of the sheet that I sent out to everybody. Again, and the idea here is to keep it really simple, but just write down job functions and your job responsibilities, and then think about what were the transferable skills that you use to perform these activities. This is just an example. And here it is sort of filled in. I mean, I just kind of made these up. Customer success manager, a couple of different job responsibilities, and then what are some of the skills that you would use to do that. And then manage a company website, and what would that be? So if this seems confusing, I hope not. I hope that what you'll find is that you have a better sense of what your skills are. Again, it's kind of wide open. Excuse me. It can be really, again, the soft skills like creative problem solving, relationship building, harder skills, maybe more like data analysis, but think about what you can do and what you have to do. So I think that the one thing I want you to consider, though, is when you've done this list and let's say you're thinking about starting a new job or looking for a new job, it still is up to you, though, to make that compelling argument about how you can transfer these skills to another opportunity. So that is something that you need to really think about. How will I talk about these? How will I address what the job requirements are? And again, how my skills relate to that. So that is part of the journey, of the process of really career transition, is how do I talk about what I've done and make it relevant to what I'm applying for next? So if you do get stuck doing something like that, talking to career professionals in the fields that you're interested in will really help a lot, that kind of networking exercise. And also career coaching, talking to someone like myself or like Amani or Emily Frank. All of us are skilled in helping people take what they have and try to figure out how to apply it to something new. I want to give you a couple examples of a pivot and a transferable skill path. So again, this is Terry. She is, that's the example I sent in the pre-work. She was a colleague of mine when we were both doing career transition. And this is kind of her journey. So what she did was she launched her career as a 911 dispatcher. And she did that for 13 years. And while she was doing that, she had an opportunity to take on some training responsibilities. She developed some staff programs and really did some kind of leadership training as well, which really helped her in her first pivot, where she went to a software vendor that sold software to law enforcement agencies. So she sort of understood the industry, but she was going at it from a different viewpoint. And she went there and she did a lot of training. Again, she transferred her training skills and her leadership development skills and team development skills to that job. So she was able to pivot to that. Then that led to her second pivot, where she went to a tech company, so she understood technology, and she went in as sort of their HR leader and did a lot of training, succession planning, leadership development again, took those skills from her former job, used them again, developed a lot of, executive coaching and business development. I'm just going to get a drink of water. And then, her final pivot was really to start her own business. And that's what she did. She became a private coach and consultant and worked for the company that I worked for, and then also did some private clients. And again, used all those skills, used her executive coaching, used leadership development, professional development, and was able to really develop a professional business and a very successful professional business doing that. So that was sort of her pivot journey. I want to share one more with you. Sarah actually is a Smith alum. She's a classmate of mine. And she started her journey as a brand manager for General Mills in Minneapolis, right out of business school. And so she started for 15 years. She was in brand management, working on Cheerios and Wheaties, doing a lot of product development. But with that came strategic planning, a lot of communication, a lot of working with teams, a lot of spreadsheet analysis, budgeting, that kind of thing. And unfortunately, this slide is a little bit misleading, as she reminded me. Her pivot one was not quite a full pivot. She did volunteer leadership kinds of things while she was working at General Mills, and also raising 3 kids. So it was possible, and it is possible to do all those things. But interestingly, her volunteer leadership was really what helped her pivot to her second pivot at the Children's Museum. While she was doing a lot of volunteer work, she had some significant leadership roles. She was a board chair, also did a significant amount of fundraising. And when she applied to be the CEO at the Minneapolis Children's Museum, she really didn't have all the things that the job description was requiring. But why they hired her was because she had done the hard work of nonprofit work. She had done the fundraising, and she had led boards and had really done a lot of leadership training and strategic planning. And she mentioned to me that in her cover letter for the Children's Museum job, she looked at the job requirements and she wrote a cover letter that addressed all her transferable skills that she could use in that job at the Children's Museum, and she got the job. Lastly, she went on to be CEO of the Twin Cities United Way. And that was actually, she was recruited to do that job, but again, could not have gotten there without all the skills that she had developed at General Mills through volunteer work and also at the Children's Museum, and transferring all of those things to her last career job, which was the CEO of a large nonprofit. So there's just some examples of how this process works, how you can transfer these things, and how you can do really different kinds of work, but very successfully by having the skills that you need to do it. We're going to talk about some really concrete next steps, because often I hear from people, okay, I get it, Gail, I get what you're talking about, but what do I do now? How do I make it work? How do I start the process? So here are some action steps that I think should make it a little bit easier to understand. The first thing you need to do is set some parameters for your job search. Again, we talked about the where, the what, and the why. Do some of that self-assessment. Think about some of those things. But think about also, is geography constraining your search? Are you not able to move somewhere? Relocation is often required, but you're not somebody who wants to do that, let's say. Do you want to stay in the same industry? Do you want to look at different industries? Are you looking at a variety of job functions, or are you open, or do you want to stay where you are? You just want something new. Something like, your family constraints might be a concern. Money may be a parameter that you set for yourself, a certain kind of compensation. So you need to set some sort of boundaries on it, so you have an idea, so you're not just kind of running all over the place. The next thing, I'm going to talk about research and then identifying possible career paths together. One of the things I often say to clients is, if you're thinking about something new, it's very difficult to kind of look at the world of work and break that down and not get overwhelmed. But really what you want to do is you want to identify 3 or 4 possible career paths that you might want to pursue. And I say might because it's kind of right at this time, these are 3 to 4 things I'm interested in looking at. And then create some target company lists for those possible career paths. Developing a target company list is something you can do by Googling companies. You can look at local business journals. You can certainly look at, you can go on LinkedIn and look at specific jobs and see who's hiring. You can look at Indeed or Glassdoor, which are big job sites, and see, you know, if you put in a bunch of keywords for a job you're interested in, let's say, or a career path, what comes up? What kinds of companies are hiring? And also networking, gathering potential networking contacts. The idea of having 3 to 4 possible career areas is really important when you start to network. Often when you network, the first thing one of your contacts is going to say to you is, A, what do you want to do? And where do you want to go? So you may not know exactly what you want to do, but having and sharing with a networking contact 3 or 4 possible ideas is a great way for them to help you get there and help you with contacts. The target company list is also a great thing to share with networking contacts, because they can take a look at that and they can say, you know what, I know people at 5 of these companies and I don't know anybody at any place else, but I'll absolutely introduce you to somebody who works there and you can have another networking conversation. So giving your networking contacts something to work with, giving them something that they can really look at and think about, and it makes their job a lot easier. So I'm a big fan of those 2 things. Along with that, and also helpful for networking, obviously, is developing your story. So this is, you're telling me about yourself. You know, I gave you mine, thinking about how would I introduce myself in the first 1 minute of a job interview or a networking meeting. What would I say about myself? I want to talk about my transferable skills. I want to talk about my interests, my abilities, maybe talk about a couple of accomplishments with some specific examples. But you really, really need to create your story and showcase, as it says, who you are and where you want to go. For those of you who've done networking, you know it's hard. It's a hard thing to do, but it is by far the most effective way to find a new career path. People are more than welcome to help as long as you help them be helpful to you. 2 questions I want everybody to think about as you go into your breakout room. The first one is, what do you consider to be your top transferable skill? Think about that. And then what would be a dream pivot option for you? What's something that maybe right now you're considering? You might not have acted on it, but you're considering it.
So now we're going to kind of debrief the conversations that you just had. It's always fun to hear some kind of trends that come up across breakout rooms. And what I'm going to do is just call on the breakout room hosts from each room to share a minute or 2 of really what you spent your time really focusing on. If there's like a high level trend you really discussed or that resonated with your group, share it with us. We're going to try and move through that in the next, 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll have a few minutes at the end for some additional questions. I know we already had one coming in the chat. And if you have additional questions for Q&A, feel free to enter those into the chat as well. Okay, so we're going to get started with Emily Frank from room 1. Can you share?
All right. So we had a really good discussion that our kind of clear theme in terms of the sort of work areas, the work satisfiers, was we had kind of an equal distribution of the who people work with and the where they work, the sort of fun places. And those tapped a lot into values that the room had around communicate, or not values, skills. I went into my own presentation.
That was yours.
Skills people have around communication, relationship building, positivity. adaptability, et cetera. And then kind of nicely, we did do a little bit of a lean into the values. And then we even went a full 360 and had a little bit of a discussion about love languages, because one of the members of the room was talking about how important recognition is in the workplace. So we sort of covered all three, but I thought the main things we were talking about in terms of the transferable skills were really those communication, relationship, and adaptability type skills, in the idea that particularly with soft skills, some things can be embedded within other things. So you can have a broad skill for, say, communication, and have a large piece of that be around writing creatively or explaining things in different ways so that different audiences can understand. So that was what we discussed in room 1.
Thanks, Emily. That's great. Gail, any thoughts? Can always feel free to comment on what you hear. If you
no, just quickly, I would say you're exactly right. I mean, a lot of these skills build on each other, and they, communication is huge, right? It can come to so many things, including presentations and everything else. So yeah, they're not sort of all set in stone. You can kind of think out of the box with your transferable skills a lot.
Great, thanks. Okay, Ann Witzel, you are next from room 2.
Great. Hi, folks. No surprise. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great. No surprise, we had a great diversity of classes, and yet everyone was passionate, I think, a lot about helping other people in one way or another. Some of the themes that came out for why people were pivoting right now was the need for more work-life balance, maybe a change in professional licensing constraints. Another one who just would rather work from home and is, at the end, maybe towards the end of her career, but is struggling a little bit with connecting with other people or networking. And then I think also just, I mean, quite honestly, we didn't say this, but I think the theme that resonated was by just having this breakout group and connecting with each other, I think it was cathartic for each. And it would be having that support when you're going through these transitions and reevaluating your skill sets and your values and where you can make impact. It's really helpful. So, I mean, I think I'm going to leave it at that. I think that's what I came away with. Everybody's pretty much knows where they need to want to go,
Yeah.
But having the support to make that transition was what I was hearing. Yeah.
And that's great. I mean, I think the biggest thing is not feeling like you're alone, that everybody's going through. If they're not, they may not be going through it and acting on it, but at least they're thinking about it. And it is really helpful. And that's why the Smith connection is such a great network for people.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
That's great. Gail, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, did anybody have my group feel I misrepresented that or want to say anything if we have time?
I'm sure you captured it very well, Anne. And like Gail said, this is our space where we're creating the opportunity for connection, but this is your network. Lean into it, find each other, connect. We're all, as you can see, Smithies love supporting each other through these changes. So thanks, Anne. Amy Mascartolo.
Yeah, we had a great conversation. So felt like some of the folks in our breakout room are at a point where they're just starting to think about this, and others are kind of well down the road of exploring what their pivot point might be. So I heard a lot about soft skills and top transferable skills being more about soft skills. And what I really heard was the power of liberal arts education, what you learned at Smith about problem solving and collaboration and communication, critical thinking skills, strategic thinking. Those were all things that were really fostered at Smith, and those are your top transferable skills, and there's a reason they are. So that was really interesting to hear. Much of what Emily and Anne said was said in our group as well. And I think the other thing that we talked about just at the end were the opportunities that are available now, whether they be geographic based or skill based or personal, family based opportunities that we're thinking about now we wouldn't have thought of 3 years ago. And that's been one of the pluses that has come from the pandemic. We're all thinking, okay, I can do the work that I do, but in a different way. Or maybe I want to pivot to something else and just completely get away from what I was doing before. And now is the time to really look for those opportunities.
Hence the theme of this series, right, Amy? Love it.
Yeah.
That's great. That's wonderful. Thank you. Okay, Lauren, you're up next.
Hi, sure. So we talked about many of the same things. So just for the sake of time, I'll highlight a few of the things maybe that were a little bit different. We also had a nice diversity of classes in our group. It was a small group. There were just 4 of us. And I think there were definitely some themes around the transferable skills, particularly, things around helping people and really being in service to others. And in fact, Emily in our group mentioned and commented, I wonder if that's a Smithy thing or if that's a result of the pandemic or what. I commented that I think maybe it's a combination of both. So we talked a little bit about that. We're all pivoting for various reasons in the group. So each of us is at a point where we're kind of reflecting and thinking about what we want to do next, myself included. So we had some nice discussion about that. And then, in terms of the who, where, what, we really focused quite a lot on the who. And as we had some discussion, recognized that for all of us in the group, who we were working with was really a big driver for our happiness in the roles that we were in. Certainly talked about the what we were doing and the importance of that as well. But there was definitely an emphasis on the who.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Lauren. Okay, we're flying through this. I hope this is okay, but we want to make sure we have a little bit of time for questions. So next up is Christine.
Hi, great discussion in our little room. 2 things that struck me from the beginning were when we were talking about our first jobs out of school, the importance of networking and the importance of transferable skills, whether we realized at the time or not that our skills were transferable. Those, I think, were very prominent in helping us get to where we went after graduation. And then the other thing I wanted to mention that we all talked about a bit, and everyone in our group was Gen X, and we're all in some stage of transition or another. And one thing that is complicating our transition and us getting to where we want to go now is the A word, age. I think all of us, if not most of us, if not all of us, are on the East Coast. And we are observing that the people who hire and fire us and the people we're competing against for roles are significantly younger than we are. And so I think I'll put in a plug for the next workshop topic is getting to where we want to go next in the face of this new age dynamic that hadn't really been so prominent in our lives before. So how do we pivot and emphasize these skills that come with experience, even if those are not immediately recognized in the job world as the assets that they are?
Gosh, Christine, that is great. I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't talk about that, but I mean, sadly, ageism is how we refer to it, is very real. And I saw it a lot in my work. It speaks to, again, using your network, because if you can network your way into an opportunity and have somebody speak for your skills and your abilities and the impact that you can have, they're going to forget about the age. So if anything, I mean, when you're applying on, with hundreds of other people through Indeed or something, it's not as easy, but networking will really make a difference in that. But that would be a great topic to talk about. It's very real, sadly. But you can
adding it to the list. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Christine. Okay, Melody, you're next.
Well, thanks, everybody. We had people at different stages in their lives and careers. So some people who've been in their careers for a really long time, some people who had pivoted a couple times before, some people who were thinking of pivoting out of the workforce and into retirement. So people at different stages. I think the thing that struck me was when people were talking about where they felt success, it connected to their most transferable skill. So I thought that was fascinating, right? Because one person, for example, talked about how she felt like she thrived in the COVID environment and that chaotic piece, you know, of being able to like really manage through all the chaos. And, you know, one of her transferable skills that she talked about was her like ability to plan and be strategic, right? Well, what could be more important in chaos, right? But that ability to think that strategically that way. So, so that was one of the things that struck me is people seem to really know what their transferable skill was that was going to bring them success in the next pivot, though they may not have identified it that way. And I think that, you know, there were a lot of similar things to what other people said. So I'll just leave it at that and let the group, if they want to add anything, feel free.
Thanks, Melody. I have to say, I'm loving seeing people drop their LinkedIn pages in the chat, share those, connect. We love to see that. And I'll share a little bit more about other ways you can find each other when we're done here. Okay, Vivian, you're up.
Thank you. We also had a great discussion. Amazing women that Smith women are. You know, really interesting. I kind of asked, I did my own poll, like how many people have pivoted in our group of 7, and 5 of us have, 1 hasn't yet, and 1 is about to. So that says a lot about us women, that we are very interesting. We love to learn. Communication, we already know how to transfer our skill sets from one area to the other. So that's really interesting. One comment that was, there were a few comments, adding into the ageism conversation, maybe a little bit more in regards to not necessarily ageism, but for most of us, our career paths are not very linear. And people are still looking at, we feel from a corporate standpoint, from a LinkedIn standpoint, for example, and so forth, that you go from one place to the other in the same industry or similar industries and so forth. And how do you communicate that, not necessarily just in a LinkedIn, but also in a, connecting with, trying to do a new job search in a different industry where you can really truly say, yes, I've been in all these industries, but here's why, and this is how I do it. So how to do that, how to get a bit more upfront there with these types of recruiters and so forth. Definitely everyone again knew what some of their top transferable skill sets are and where they need to go to. And one other thing I think is just the value of networking and actually especially the Smith network. Because I did also ask how many folks had used the Smith network in the past, and it's not as high as it could be. So I think that's really important from that standpoint. So if anyone else is on here, if I missed anything, please let me know. But otherwise, it was a great discussion. We had a really good time.
Thank you. Thanks, Vivian. Sarah, you're up next.
Yeah, so a lot of the same conversations that we've heard from others, definitely folks looking to hone in on their skills and their most transferable in terms of like ranking them. But a common thread for everyone was this idea around collaboration and looking to help and support others that we've also heard in this space. So I think that's very telling of the type of people Smith draws. And for us, I think it was really common in our conversation to talk about this idea of passion projects and things that we have really loved doing, but haven't necessarily been financially supportive, and trying to figure out ways to make sustainable incomes and livelihoods while also being able to like make a difference and use some of these more creative and less hard skills in impactful ways that can still make a difference.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think what I'm hearing a lot of is how do you kind of market your skills? How do you tell the narrative of what gets you up in the morning and makes you excited about work? And that's coming through in a lot of these conversations. So definitely thinking about kind of narratives, that how we can help folks kind of generate those narratives. You referenced, Gail, at the outset.
Yeah, that is really, I mean, being able to tell your story in a compelling way that makes sense for people. Like Vivian, when you were talking about changing industries, obviously people are going to be like, wait, I don't get it. You want to go from this to this. And I think that's where when you kind of get more focused on the basics, like skills and abilities and accomplishments, and just make, you have to kind of connect the dots for people often. I think that's a lot of it. And again, the more information you can gain by talking to people and doing that, that helps too. Do your research. That helps a lot.
Right. And I think this moment in time in particular, we'll see more and more people coming to the table with these kind of nonlinear, non-traditional career trajectories. And that'll also help, I think, acclimate recruiters and hiring managers to being kind of comfortable with those non-traditional paths, or at least that's my hope. That is my hope. Okay, thanks, Sarah. Imani. Hi.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Can.
Okay. So my breakout, we were a breakout of alums that worked in the education space. So that was really, really interesting, and in different capacities. We shared like our pivot stories, but then also like where alums are just like right now, with just recognizing that it's not even so much of the work that they're doing, but it could be time served that is also influencing the desire to want to do something new. And that pivoting is not something that's negative. It is just something we should embrace as change. Something that came up in terms of the who, it wasn't so much like who alums were doing the work with, but who they were doing the work on behalf of. And so that impact, so whether that was students, adult learners, wanting to continue to engage in that way, and then also considering how that impact may show up either in a hybrid or a remote work environment. And also share just like a organization or a company that the alums can look into, because again, in the education space. And yeah, there was one more thing. I'm wondering if anyone from the group wanted to chime in, if there was anything else that I'm missing.
I think you covered it all, Imani.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great job. Thanks, Imani. Okay, next up is Wendy.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to start with what was going to be my final point first. We were a small group of 4. We had majored in government, history, economic psychology, and art history. There's a theme that I'll be coming to in a second. But one of the things that we talked about, and I've heard it from a few others, is the challenge of pivoting after a long time at a single job, coupled, I think, with a little bit of ageism. So I did have to right away say, wait. I took a job at NASDAQ, the exchange and technology provider. In 2017, I was 67 years old. So, and how I did that was I finally got to the point of understanding what my transferable skills were and how to articulate them. And I created my own job. And it was all through networking. So I just wanted to say that because I heard ageism at least 4 times. I was like, no. There are ways. We had common Smithy themes in terms of our transferable skills. Right off the bat, people talked about curiosity, the love of research and learning, strong communication skills, orientation towards people and problem solving. And we found a few what I'd call hidden transferable skills in one of our discussions, which had to do with tact and patience and diplomacy, which is not an interesting set of skills to think through. As I said, everyone is in different stages of thinking about their next pivot. Me, I'm thinking about pivoting out of the paid workforce. I might need to call you, Gail. We had some fun discussions about dream jobs. And I have to quote two of them because they were too much fun. One is editing a TV show, not creating it, but making the characters better. And the other one was criminal investigation on a global basis.
Wow.
So,
Cool.
Yeah. And I don't know if I said it, but I find every time we get into one of these groups and we talk about transferable skills or what we're doing or so on, it always comes out to me the value of the Smith education.
Yeah. Yeah.
The value
yeah.
of this network as we build it out.
Yes. And we're trying to make it stronger. So we're happy that you're all kind of bought into that initial concept, and please join us in making it the really active, vibrant network that we know it is already, right?
I just have a quick comment for Wendy. You know, when you were talking about the hidden skills, like tact and diplomacy, and I think it's because Smith women are such great leaders, kind of natural leaders, and a large part of being an effective leader is being tactful, being diplomatic, being a community builder, a relationship builder, all of those things. And maybe we just all come by it naturally. Who knows what it is? But I think that's part of it. I also, just very quickly, you got one more group, is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, then I saw there was a question in the chat that I wanted to address.
Yeah. Yep.
So go ahead.
Okay. All right. Last up, Lynn, you can share from your group. Thank you.
I can, once I make sure I'm not on mute anymore. So yeah, all of these comments are so interesting. The aging thing, particularly in tech, that's where I work, I think is fascinating. I really like just, you know, there seemed to sort of be this undercurrent of, you know, the value of a liberal arts education, the skills that really can go into so many directions. I thought it was fascinating that we kind of had like the Venn diagram of all of our sort of skills and things overlap, even though we had folks in healthcare, in like speech pathology, in law, you know, kind of these other, but there are themes throughout those. So it sort of strengthens the argument that you really can kind of pick up so many of those skills and, you know, transport them where you're going. You know, we talked a lot about research and writing and kind of the, I don't like to use the term soft skills because I think it's gendered and problematic, but like the sort of relationship building, relationship management skills that are so essential in so many of today's jobs, because it's something that you can't automate, right? You can't program a computer to manage relationships. And, you know, and I think we talked a fair amount too about, there is this need for the environment to be right. There is a need for, you know, the money to be right. And that's sometimes tricky for women to say, but it's, you know, a perfectly valid thing that we all need to wrestle with, especially as those of us, you know, who have kids and mortgages and all of that good stuff. So, you know, lots of good thoughts there.
Thank you. Thanks, Lynn. Yeah, we need to get comfortable asking for more money, right? And being okay with that and not feeling guilty about that, because it is important. Gail, did you want to add anything to what Lynn had to say or answer the question we had in the chat?
No, Lynn, you know, it's funny, I use that term soft skills, but you're right. I never feel comfortable saying it. It always seems like I'm kind of denigrating it of them or something. I don't know. There's something about this that makes me feel comfortable. So I agree with you, whatever they are, but they're all these things that are important. We have to figure out a new title for that. There was a question in the chat about what do you do if you have a gap on your resume? And Emily and Amani, jump in if you want to. But I just will give one quick anecdote. So I took years off of work to raise my kids because we were living in a place where I had no family and my husband was working like 15 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, and I had 3 small children. But what I did was I stayed sort of engaged in the community and I did a lot of nonprofit work. So I did kind of what I knew how to do, which was career transition, resume writing, that kind of thing. I just did it for a totally different demographic with a nonprofit for women who had been incarcerated or were substance abusers. And when I went to go back to work, they didn't even really blink an eye. It was interesting. And also on the age thing, I was 57. And they just sort of said, great, you got the skills, we need you. I was a little bit rusty, but they seemed to accept that and it worked. So Wendy, I'm with you on that. So it can, I mean, it's tricky. It's tricky. It's always hard, but you need to stay engaged, I guess is my message. And figure out ways that you can do what you know how to do. It just maybe look totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Gail. That's great. And Cam, you know, I see your question about kind of how to ask for what you need, how to ask for accommodations you need without, you know, like being immediately removed from consideration. And Gail and I chatted about that while in the breakouts. And Gail is going to kind of look into some resources that she can share with you directly about that, if that sounds good. And also, I'll call out that we have a person on the call here, Sarah Cragnis. Her business actually is in. Actually, Sarah, can you unmute and just kind of give your little spiel about your work and how you might be able to assist Cam?
Yeah, hi. So my work is in diversity, equity, and inclusion coaching and consulting for small businesses, entrepreneurs, and influencers, folks who are looking to do this work of telling your story and also connecting to social justice issues on digital media and using that to leverage building an audience, building your business. And Cam specifically, as a fellow disabled entrepreneur or person in the workforce, Smithy, that is a big challenge. It's something I faced when I first was trying to consider what I was doing, is I just wasn't hearing back from places as a Smith alum or a Smith grad because I was saying I was disabled. And that is a very rough position that we are in right now in the world. And it's a reality. So I encourage you to, things I've heard from others in the disabled community has been to not put it in initial applications so that you're getting calls back. And then once you are in phases of contract negotiation, you have a lot more leverage to be able to say what it is that you need for accommodations, because then if they are all of a sudden rescinding an offer, you have a very strong case for discrimination.
That's great.
Love
that. Thank you all for being here, for showing up. And I hope you'll continue to lean into your network to find the support you need, because, you know, we're all in this together, not to be too cheesy about it, but we really do care about each other. And that's where I'll end that today. So thank you all for being here. And I hope to see you at our series when they launch again in the fall.